Discover 3 spine-chilling Christmas horror stories. Terrifying secrets of the cursed and sinister. The twinkling Christmas lights in Maplewood were a facade, hiding more than just holiday cheer. Underneath the bright colors lay shadows, twisted secrets bubbling, just beneath the surface of Clara's quiet suburb. As Claire, a single mother in her late 30s, bustled about her modest home preparing for the holidays with her 2 kids, Ellie and Jake, the festive spirit felt like a mask for the dread that gnawed at her. Something was off. The friendly greetings from neighbors turned into furtive glances. Laughter echoed in the night but carried on heavy breaths like whispers of buried sins. Claire felt their eyes drilling into her, calculating, watching. Was it paranoia or something more sinister? Twisted in her gut, but she shrugged it off. She had to make this Christmas perfect for her kids. On Christmas Eve, after tucking Ellie and Jake into bed, exhaustion enveloped her like a shroud. Just as she prepared to unwind, a letter slid beneath her front door. Badly scrawled words warned of a dark gift in the attic. She chuckled darkly, brushing it aside as a prank. Fatigue dimmed her senses, but a nagging feeling urged her to check the attic anyway. Climbing the ladder to the attic, she kicked up dust motes as memories hung thick in the air. Searching for extra wrapping paper, she discovered a box tucked away in the corner. Dust-covered and ancient, it seemed to pulse with unease. Inside were ornaments, each shimmering with color yet weighted with dread. They looked like childhood dreams but felt like nightmares upon touch. Each had a story written in the silent screams of their past. A loss, betrayal, and tragedies that tainted her neighborhood as history. Clara's heart raced as the threads of horror began to weave. Her neighbors were tied to this dark tapestry. The next night, a late shift at the diner left Claire weary and on edge. Driving home, a pair of headlights shadowed her, inching closer like a predator stalking its prey. Heart thumping in her chest, she stole a glance at the rearview mirror. Mr. Thompson, the wholly charming neighbor, shifted uncomfortably behind the wheel. Tonight, the kindness in his face was replaced with an unsettling glint. Why is he following me? Panic gripped her as she swerved into her driveway, throwing open her front door, locking it behind her with trembling hands. The enormity of the neighborhood's dark undercurrents flowed through her like ice water. Just when she thought she could breathe, her phone buzzed a new message from an unknown number adorned with an ominous warning. You've gone too far, Claire. The past doesn't forget, and neither do the ornaments. A chill traveled down her spine, shadows in the house stretching, merging into one ominous figure. Sounds from the attic slithered down the walls, desperate and calling. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Claire swallowed hard, steeling herself for whatever waited in the shadows. She glanced at her sleeping children, innocent and blissfully unaware. The thought crushed her chest. Her trust in neighbors could lead to ruin. Drawing a deep breath, she crept toward the attic door, a sinister whisper teasing her ears. You're just in time for the family reunion, Claire. What awaited her behind that dusty door felt like the end of her already unsteady peace. The past was waiting, and it wouldn't let her go without a fight. The attic creaked as Claire pushed the door open. A gust of cold air rushed past her, making the hairs on her arms stand up. She hesitated, gripping the doorknob tighter, the chill of the metal seeping into her bones. Inside, shadows twirled in the dim light, twisting shapes that flickered on the walls. The air smelled stale, tinged with an undefinable scent that mingled like rancid memories. Just ornaments, she whispered, trying to convince herself. The promise of nostalgia called to her, even as dread sat heavily in her stomach. The box lay open, unnecessary in the darkness, ornaments scattered like bodies from a forgotten grave. Each twinkle from the glass reflected fragments of past lives sealed within them. As she stepped in, the floorboards groaned a low, mournful sound. A voice, soft yet unmistakable, echoed in her mind. Time to remember. She shook her head violently. It couldn't be real. Panic gripped her heart. Then, a flicker of movement at the edge of her vision. A shadow, hunched and grotesque, hovered just beyond the reach of her flashlight. The darkness advanced, consuming her light, snuffing out the security that came with it. A flash of silver caught her eye, the worst kind of ornament, sharp and deadly. Who's there? Claire's voice wavered, her breath quickening. Fear twisted inside her throat. She felt the weight of unseen gazes on her, observing her movements. The ornaments shimmered cruelly, mocking her, and then, a whispered mocking laugh cascading all around her. Heart pounding, Claire turned, desperate to escape back into the safety of her home. Another noise flared behind her, a voice, chilling, twisted with malice. You're part of it now, Claire. You have to join the family. The attic door slammed shut behind her, cutting off her escape like a trap snapping shut. Panic spiraled as she rattled the doorknob. It wouldn't budge. Each second drew the shadows closer, a vortex of darkness closing in. Overwhelmed, Claire clung to the box, yanking the trinkets from within as if they might help. One ornament felt particularly warm against her cold fingers. A tiny, ornate star, bright but cracked, glimmering with a sickly hue that reflected terror. Every breath she took soaked in fear. She could feel the voices rising, a chorus of the forgotten. Give in. Claire, it's your turn. A silhouette flickered in the corner of her eye, an apparition rising from the depths of darkness. A skeletal figure holding out a hand. Inside the grasp was a tattered letter, the edges burnt and singed. The words "Forgive me" were scrawled with shaking letters. A reminder of a neighborhood long past, stirred awake by her curiosity. Claire's mind raced as specters filled the room, faces twisted in anguish, accusations burning in their eyes. The voices escalated, telling tales of betrayal and loss that wormed their way into her mind. She couldn't take it anymore. With a desperate scream, she lunged for the open window, but before she could reach it, an unseen force slammed her back. A terrifying crack echoed, and Claire fell to the ground. Dazed, she looked around, the room twisting wildly. The ornaments shimmered, whispering her name, each syllable laced with malediction. Claire. She crawled toward the attic door, breaths coming in ragged gasps, the sensations within the darkness intensifying. In that moment, the door creaked open, revealing Mr. Thompson on the threshold, his eyes glinting with something terrifyingly familiar. You thought you could escape, didn't you? He sneered, stepping forward. Get away. Claire screamed, but it was too late. Shadows poured out of the attic like a tide, overwhelming her as she felt the past closing in, clutching at her with icy fingers. The last thing she saw before everything faded was the ornaments, now bright and vivid, illuminating the darkness, revealing the truth behind their torment. What secrets had she awakened? The air in the attic thickened, twisting with shadows as Mr. Thompson advanced. His figure loomed over Claire, an apparition cloaked in malevolence. Panic surged through her veins, quickening her pulse to a frantic race. She scrambled back on the floor, searching for an escape, but the wall pressed against her as if the house itself conspired to trap her. Every family has its secrets, Claire, he continued, a cruel smile stretching across his face. And ours? Oh, it's delightful. His voice dropped, a conspiratorial whisper that sent chills dancing down her spine. You're now part of this twisted legacy. With a sudden movement, he reached down, grasping the edge of the box of ornaments. His fingers brushed against the cracked star, and a shockwave erupted through the air, throbbing against her like a heartbeat. The ornaments began to rattle, each sound like fragile bones being jarred. Let us see what you've awakened, he hissed, tilting the box until its contents spilled onto the floor. The tiny glass figures scattered, laughing in the cacophony of dark memories. Each ornament shimmered with a pulse of its own, glowing like trapped souls begging for release. Claire's hands trembled as she scanned the twisted faces and hollow eyes of the ornaments. They seemed alive, yearnings of the lost resurrected. A red bulb danced, its shape morphing into a visage of her childhood neighbor, Miss Hargrove. The old woman's mouth opened wide, a scream echoing from the glass, a wail of betrayal and sorrow. "No!" Claire screamed, shoving herself back against the wall. Desperation clawed at her throat. She wanted to keep the haunting past at bay, but with each flicker of light, more new horrors emerged, tearing at her sanity. Shadows coiled around her legs like serpents, unseen hands reaching up to touch, tugging at her. "Embrace it, Claire," Mr. Thompson urged, his face twisted in sadistic pleasure. "Forgive and join us or remain trapped between the living and the dead." The air crackled with tension. From the darkness emerged silhouettes of what appeared to be former family members, expressions frozen in agony, mouths gaping without sound. A little girl, a facsimile of her once innocent self, hovered before her with sunken cheeks and hollowed eyes, whispering Clara's name. "Together forever," the apparition croaked. "No, I want tea." But even as she yelled, dread wrapped around Claire, squeezing tighter than ever before. The shadows intensified, a suffocating blanket. Each ornament began to glow brighter, reflecting not only her torment, but the stories of every family member lost after wrongs were left unaddressed. "What have I done?" The revelation coursed through her, an icy realization that her search for nostalgia had unearthed buried secrets. In sheer panic, Claire flung herself sideways, grabbing the star ornament as the whispers crescendoed, pulling at her mind. It was warm, vibrant, connected in a way she couldn't explain. The warmth spread like wildfire, consuming her, inciting hope against the tide of despair. "Stop," she demanded, clutching it tightly. "I want to be part of this." Suddenly, the figures recoiled as if struck. Mr. Thompson's smile faltered, shifting to dread as the ornaments, united by her will, illuminated the room with pure, white light. The darkness screamed, angry and restless, a chorus of horrors wishing to drag her down into oblivion. The floor trembled beneath her. Voices of anguish mingled with Clara's heart hammering in her ears. "Run!" The voice of little Claire urged, echoing faintly against the storm. And just when it felt like the light might extinguish, when seemingly all was lost, the light flared, ripping through the shadows to the door. It opened wide, revealing not just an exit, but a dizzying vortex of memories intertwined with the pulse of life. Could she really escape the binding ties of the past? Or was this merely a trick of shadows leading her deeper into the abyss? The air swirled, and with one last breath, Claire took a step forward into the chaos of memory and identity. Would she find salvation or become the next ornament in this twisted collection? The vortex swallowed Claire whole, yanking her into a whirlwind of light and darkness. Her senses spiraled. She felt like a scrap of paper floating through a storm. Flashes of scenarios shot past her. Family dinners turned sour, birthdays haunted by whispered arguments, and laughter shredded by regret. She landed hard against a wooden floor with a thud, winded. The room was different, colder. The air crackled with a sinister energy that made her skin prickle. Claire struggled to her feet, breathless. A flickering candle illuminated the space, casting ghostly shadows that danced along the walls. The scent of burnt wax mixed with something rotten, putting her on edge. "Hello?" she called, her voice trembling. It echoed back, the sound distorted, as if mocking her despair. Her eyes scanned the room. Framed photos lined the walls, their faces twisted in grotesque smiles. Each looked familiar yet wrong, like they were hiding something sinister behind their grins. A chill crept into the room, curling around her like icy fingers. Claire's heart raced. Was she still trapped in the attic? Was this some kind of sick joke? She took a shaky step forward, drawn to a large, ornate mirror gleaming in the shadows. The glass felt laced with secrets, a smooth reflection that promised to unveil the truth. Without thinking, she reached out to touch the surface. As her fingers brushed against the cool glass, ripples distorted her reflection, morphing it into an array of grotesque images. Family members she barely recognized flashed before her eyes, some bloated with despair, others shattered like glass, their mouths screaming silently. No, she gasped, stumbling back. Panic surged again, a tidal wave crashing over her. She needed to escape this. The house felt alive, the floorboards creaking beneath her, as if it breathed in synchronicity with her anxiety. Suddenly, shadows engulfed her again. They formed into figures, yawing from the corners, creeping closer. The laughter rose, not from the ornaments this time, but from the figures her family, twisted and deranged. Their laughter morphed into cries of anger, accusations cutting through the air like jagged glass. "Why did you leave us?" one of them wailed, a glimpse of her mother, eyes hollow and pleading. "You abandoned your past, while it waited for you." "No, I had to move on." I thought her words fizzled into silence as she faltered under their collective gaze. The shadows twisted tighter, pulling her into their despair, wrapping her in a shroud of suffocating regret. "Face it, Claire," another figure screamed. It was her father, distorted, his anger palpable. "Face the truth. You're a part of us, whether you like it or not." She shuddered, the truth slashing at her mind like a whip. Escaping wasn't just about leaving the attic or this house. It was confronting the pain she tried to forget. That flickering light, she realized, wasn't meant to guide her towards hope, but to unveil the horror lurking inside. Suddenly, the mirror shimmered back to life, calling her with its reflective grasp. The urgency pulsed through her. Could she really look into it, confront what lay beneath? Tears blurred her vision as she stepped forward, feeling every heartbeat hammering in her ears. The moment of reckoning was at hand, and she knew she had a choice: face the truth or be consumed by the darkness. With a deep breath, Claire braced herself. She could feel the shadows creeping, anxious, desperate to drag her in. And as she pressed her palms against the mirror, she whispered her answer to the darkness. But would it be enough to sever the ties that bound her? Or would her reflection drown her in the very legacy she had tried to escape? The haunting laughter of her ancestors built to a crescendo, resonating through the confines of the room, urging her toward the brink. Would the truth liberate her, or would it seal her fate forever? The moment her palms made contact with the mirror, the world around Claire shattered. A blinding flash consumed her, sending shards of light and shadow spiraling in every direction. She felt weightless, like a feather tossed in a tempest, before suddenly crashing back to the cold, wooden floor. Groaning, Claire opened her eyes, and panic washed over her. The atmosphere was thick as fog, suffocating, rendering everything around her into sinister shapes. The flickering candlelight had dimmed, leaving only sparse glimmers in the enveloping dusk. The eerie whispers wrapped around her, muffled echoes of her family's pain lacerating the silence. "Please, no more," Claire whimpered, her throat dry and raw, but the shadows seemed to tighten their grasp. Around her, the room began to morph. The distorted faces in the photographs peeled away from the walls, swirling like smoke before her eyes, reforming into blackened figures. Each face held a memory, a moment she once cherished, now tainted and grotesque. "What do you want from me?" she yelled, the desperation leaking into her voice. The air thickened, spiraling into a jagged silence. Then, one by one, the figures took form. They floated closer, melding into the shape of her long-lost uncle, a man she never spoke of, his face marred by silent screams. His eyes bore into hers with an accusatory gaze, stripping her of any will to fight. "Did you think you could forget?" he rasped, the words slithering into her mind. "We never vanished, Claire. You cast aside your roots. Now you must pay the price." "Stop it," she screamed, but the words felt feeble, swallowed by the shadows that wrapped around her. The laughter of her family echoed through the room, taunting her. They danced just on the edges of her vision, their features melting into nightmarish forms that twisted and writhed. Suddenly, an icy hand gripped her wrist. Claire froze, heart hammering against her chest. She turned slowly to find another figure, her own likeness carved from darkness. It wore a cruel smile that didn't meet its eyes, a reflection of her own suppressed feelings of guilt and shame. "You can't run from our truth," the figure sneered, tightening its hold. You thought moving away meant you could discard us. But you're wrong. We're a part of you forever. Trembling, Claire looked into its eyes, realizing she was battling not just the darkness of her family, but the darkness within herself. The shadows whirled and thrummed, beckoning her to succumb to despair. Fight it, a small voice inside her urged. This isn't the end. You can break free. With newfound determination, Claire yanked her arm back, her gaze shifting to the mirror. It shimmered faintly, promising escape or oblivion. Was freedom worth confronting the ghost of every wrong she'd done? Lifting her chin, she focused on her reflection. The dark figure mimicked her movements, a moment of twisted connection. A battle raged inside, between sinking into despair and reclaiming her identity. As she took a step toward the mirror, the chamber erupted around her. The shadows shrieked, fury lashing like a storm. Choose, Claire. Choose, they howled. And with a deep breath, Claire dove forward, ready to confront every regret, every fear. But as she plunged deeper into the mirror, a chilling realization struck her. What if it wasn't just the past she had to confront, but a fate worse than anything she'd known? The darkness surged to envelop her as she vanished from sight, spiraling into nothingness. What would she discover on the other side of the mirror? Falling. It felt like she was tumbling into a deep abyss, swirling and twisting in a vortex of dread. The chill enveloped her, sinking deeper into her bones, as wisps of shadow whispered in a cacophony of regret and sorrow. Claire's mind raced, grappling with the fear of the unknown. Was there really a chance to confront her past? Or was she sliding into a void from which she'd never return? Suddenly, the world around her solidified. She landed with a thud on a cold stone floor, the dampness creeping up from beneath her. The air was sharp, cutting through her lungs. It smelled stale like decay mixed with the faint scent of pine. Claire pushed herself to her feet, heart racing. All around her stretched a vast landscape, twisting paths lined with dark, gnarled trees that loomed threateningly against a blood-red sky. Everything felt wrong here. It was a bleak parody of a winter wonderland, where the snowflakes were dark and the shadows moved with indecipherable purpose. "Hello?" she called out, her voice echoing ominously. No answer came, just a whisper of wind that sent shivers down her spine. She stepped forward, each crunch of the ground amplifying her anxiety. The tree branches creaked eerily overhead, each sound threatening to shatter the silence but carrying no comfort. Then, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Something darted between the trees, quick, slithering, but just out of reach. Claire felt the chill of foreboding creep tighter around her. Every instinct told her to run, but another part dared her forward. What if it held the answers she sought? With cautious curiosity, Claire moved deeper into the trees. Her breath came out in soft puffs, almost like the smoke from a dying fire. Shadows twisted and turned, but she pressed on, guided by an inexplicable pull. Just beyond the branches, a clearing opened up, suddenly illuminated by a pale, ghostly light, and there, amidst the swirling shadows, stood an old wooden table, set with winter delicacies. Plates piled with charred meats and Christmas treats lay untouched, still steaming as if waiting for guests who would never arrive. Claire's stomach turned at the sight. "What is this?" she whispered, disbelief coloring her voice. The moment she stepped closer, a chill clawed at her spine. Faces emerged in the frost on the table, twisting in agony. Each one was familiar: her parents, her siblings, all twisted in expressions of horror and pain. "No," she gasped, taking a step back. But something yanked at her, pulling her toward the table. The weight of her ancestors' despair pressed against her, the shadows closing in like a vice. "You wanted to confront us, didn't you?" A voice murmured, silky yet sinister. Claire turned, her heart racing wildly. The dark figure of her own self loomed before her, but this time with a glimmer of flames in its eyes. "You've come to the wrong place, Claire. Here we are at our strongest." "No." She stumbled back, losing her balance. The ground trembled beneath her, and with that, the shadows seemed to laugh, an echo that morphed into her family's chuckles. mocking her attempt at defiance. The table began to extend and shift, reaching out to her, cradling the faces pressing against the frost. Claire could barely breathe. The reality set in. Surrendering to this darkness meant sealing her fate among the anguished souls that once loved her. "I don't belong to this," she screamed, choking on despair. But the darkness surged, ready to drag her in for good. Facing her dark twin, Claire felt anger boil within. "I will not let you win," she shouted, determination sparking against her fear. Could she make one last stand against this twisted version of herself? Or was the allure of the shadows too strong to resist? And as she shouted her defiance, a rushing wind howled around her, pulling her toward the table and its horrifying legacy. What would she have to sacrifice to break the curse of memory? The shadows lunged forward, and Claire felt their icy fingers grasp at her edges, tearing at her sanity. She fought against the pull, her heart hammering in her chest. Each breath felt like a battle, and every desperate scream echoed against the stone walls of her confinement. "Let go of me," she cried, but her voice trembled, almost swallowed by the ominous atmosphere. The mocking laughter returned, a chorus of tortured souls, each note twisting her heart like a dagger. It was then that she realized she wasn't just confronting her past. She was wading into a riptide of her memories, each pull dragging her down. The table stretched toward her like a sinister promise, faces drawn taut in eternal agony. It was unbearable. She couldn't let them take her. Couldn't let their pain be her destiny. With determination born from the depths of her fear, Claire planted her feet and steadied herself. "You don't have power over me," she shouted, filled with desperation. The flames in her dark twin's eyes flickered, uncertainty creeping into the creature's smirk as the shadows recoiled momentarily. Claire seized the chance. She turned, the clearing around her twisting wildly, the trees creaking as if the land itself resented her presence. She didn't know where to run, just that she had to escape this wake of despair. "Find the light," she thought, echoing her mother's familiar words. She remembered family trips to the lake, bonfires glowing against darkening skies, laughter floating on the air like an enchantment. If there was light, there had to be a way out. Just as a path opened between the trees, she felt it again, a tug, sharper this time. Another figure launched from the shadows beside her, a grotesque mixture of her family's faces melting together in a tortured visage. "You can't escape," it shrieked, voice merging into an all-encompassing roar that battered against her ears. Claire stumbled forward, the shadows snapping at her heels, hungry to claim her. As she dashed through the trees, instinct propelled her forward. The wind whistled madly, pulling at her clothes, howling warnings of what lay behind her. Heart pounding, Claire pushed herself harder, dodging branches as they reached out to snag her. "No, you won't take me," she shouted defiantly, feeling the strength of her resolve pulse through her, each footfall echoing like thunder beneath her. But the deeper she ran, the more the shadows pursued, as if they thrived on her fear. The edge of the clearing. Something glittered, a shard of light, piercing the sky like a beacon. "The light!" she gasped, even as the entity of her dark self screeched in fury. This was her chance. She charged toward it, hands reaching out as if the light would transform her. But just before she crossed the threshold, the shadows snatched at her ankles. They wrapped around her like chains, pulling her back with a ferocity that threatened to crush her spirit. "You belong to us," they hissed, a swarm of voices erupting in a cacophony that rattled her bones as she clawed at the earth, struggling against their grasp. A profound realization pierced her heart. "No," she murmured, breathing through the suffocation. "I do not belong to this." Each word was a shard of glass, cutting through the darkness. "I choose my own path." The shadows paused, their malevolence faltering. Claire drew upon every ounce of strength, expanding her consciousness, filling the void with her memories of love, laughter, and hope. "You won't win," she cried, a storm of courage surging through her at that moment. Light exploded around her, an all-encompassing radiance that illuminated the shadows like fire. They screeched, writhing away, as warmth enveloped her. Suddenly, She was weightless, lifted by a force far greater than anything she had ever known. But the faces of her family still hovered at the fringes, echoing in the light. Their pain was not gone, not yet. Claire felt the truth in her core. She must not only face them but also show them the light she had found. As she soared toward the brilliance, she could feel the shadows coiling to follow, like smoke-chasing flames. Would she be able to free her family as well? Or would the darkness consume them all before the light had a chance to flourish? And as she felt herself rush ever closer to the light, a chilling thought whispered in the back of her mind, maybe the light wasn't what it seemed at all. The light engulfed her, swirling in colors too bright for human eyes, yet somehow it felt familiar, like a warm embrace. Claire's body floated, suspended in this luminescent expanse. There were no shadows here. She thought of her family, their faces slipping into her mind like specters, haunting yet achingly vivid. They needed her. "Please," she whispered, "I won't abandon you." Determined, she stretched out her hands, sending ripples of light into the darkness around her. The light shimmered and buckled as if responding to her plea, creating a pulsing wave that beckoned her family to join her. Suddenly, the faces twisted. They looked terrified, their eyes wide with a fear that sent ice crawling down Clara's spine. "Stay away. Don't listen to her." The familiar voices morphed into something monstrous, the laughter morphing into wails that echoed within the depths of her mind. "No!" Claire cried out, the sound rattling her. "I'm here to help you." The light flickered, casting long shadows around her. She could see the outlines of her loved ones trapped in a swirling veil of darkness, their cries muffled, unanswered. Each face seemed distorted, contorted with fear, agony, regret. With a surge of defiance, Claire focused on her love for them, pushing the light outward like a beacon. But the shadows were tenacious, clawing at her will. "You will join us," they hissed, slipping through the light like smoke. "You must accept your fate." "No!" Claire screamed, energy recoiling like a taut string. She felt their grasp tightening around her heart, heavy like an anchor. Memories surged like a tidal wave, holidays spent in warmth, laughter over cake at family gatherings, her mother's soft lullabies. "I won't forget," she shouted, grounding herself. The light flickered again, a heartbeat, and for an instant, Claire saw it, an undercurrent of darkness hidden in the brightness. It slithered around her family, feeding off their despair like a parasite. Panic surged through her. What if the light was just another cover, another illusion? Desperate and frantic, she dove deeper into the light, ignoring the pain wrapping around her like steel chains. "I believe in you," she screamed to her family, pouring her strength into her words. As the shimmering path rippled, darkness hesitated, caught off guard by the surge of raw emotion. But the figure emerged again, the twisted visage of her dark twin, this time with a blazing grin that froze Clara's blood. "You're too late," it shrieked, mirth dancing in its eyes. "Your memories, your love, it only makes you weaker. You belong to the shadow." In that moment, doubt gnawed at Claire. Was her hope futile? She could feel the emptiness behind her, a void that waited to consume everything she held dear. Heart racing, she glanced back at the swirling darkness. "I will not be like you." The words exploded from her, a raw pulse of defiance vibrating in the air. But with each second, the shadows grew bolder, swirling around her family, clutching their hearts, tightening with malevolent glee. Claire felt the life drain from the light, her energy waning against the growing tide of despair. Where was the escape? Panic gripped her like a vice. She was losing them. "Claire." A voice echoed from the shadows, deep and broken. It was her mother, and for the first time, Claire saw a flicker of hope in that terrified gaze. "Help us. You must find the truth." "What truth?" Claire's mind whirled, grappling with fear. The light dimmed, the shadows howled louder. The weight of their anguished cries pressed down on her. She had to make a choice: fight deeper into the light or confront the darkness head-on. And just as the shadows clenched tighter, a single thought lighted up her mind. The truth isn't in the light or the darkness but in me. But would acknowledging herself be enough to save them? Would it be the key to break the grip of their torment? As she clenched her fists in resolve, the shadows quivered. Would they crumble beneath the weight of her truth, or would it all dissolve into darkness? The shadows surged, relentless and ravenous, battering against Claire's resolve. Her heart raced, a drumbeat of terror echoing in the confines of her mind. She felt their cold fingers brush against her skin, a chilling reminder of their power. Panic tangled in her throat as she wrestled with the certainty that each second could be her last. Find the truth, her mother's voice lingered, barely audible against the din of the shadows. But what truth? Claire's fists tightened, nails digging into her palms like small, desperate anchors. The darkness pulsed, hissing words that slithered into her thoughts, tantalizing fears that wormed their way into her consciousness. You've always been inadequate, Claire. A failure. You will never save them. Give up. She gritted her teeth against the torment. A tide of memories flooded her mind. Moments of embarrassment, the time she let them down, faces heaped with disappointment. The shame weighed heavier than ever. No, Claire shouted, the word clawing its way out. She refused to let their past mistakes define her. I am more than my failures. The light flickered, fluctuating with her resolve. Anger and grief fueled her, a fierce inferno igniting in her chest. Suddenly, a ghostly figure twisted out of the shadows, the very essence of despair, and looked straight into her eyes. It was her father, his face a mask of sorrow and discontent. You should have listened. His mouth moved but no words came, just a throbbing silence that echoed between them. Dad. Claire's words cut off as she noticed the gray fog around him, a veil of anguish that wrapped tighter and tighter. No. She stretched out her hands, but the shadows yanked him deeper into their clutches. I can save you. You can't change what has done, he yelled, his voice weathered and broken, like the last remnants of a dying storm. The ground beneath her shifted, a swirling abyss threatening to consume her as the winds of despair howled around her. With every fiber of her being, she focused on the truth her mother had mentioned. Maybe it's not just about saving them, she whispered to herself, searching within. The warmth of her love, buried deep but unwavering, ignited, pushing back against the dark. Yes, I was afraid, but now I see. I can't let your memories drown me. I won't deny who I am any longer. The light surged, a brilliant pulse of warmth piercing through the icy shadows. The twisted faces of her family flickered in and out, hope shining through their anguish as they reached for her. They were lost, but not beyond saving. Yet the dark twin was watching her, its grin widening. You think you can turn it back on us? You're still in the shadow's grasp, Claire. You refuse to acknowledge the truth that you are nothing. Stop. Claire screamed, shaking her head violently, dispelling the doubt. She squinted, focusing on the light, on her family, her heart pounding. Then she felt it, an overwhelming surge within her that she never knew existed. A flood of memories, both beautiful and horrid, converged like a chaotic storm. I am flawed, I am human. That's my truth, she shouted, unleashing a wave of energy that rippled through the air. The darkness recoiled, fear clawing at its features. Just as the shadows began to waver, shadows caught her reflection, her true self. She could feel the stark tether of grief and anxiety linking her to the anguish surrounding her family. As she bravely confronted this patchwork of emotions, the binding threads began to fray. But the dark twin countered, shifting like smoke, its eyes sparkling with malice. Your truth won't save them. You'll see. And then it struck, a sudden rush of darkness so fierce it felt as if the air was being torn away. Claire gasped, choking as shadows lunged. She stumbled backward, heart racing. She had only begun to grasp her truth, and now the shadows were relentless, ready to ensnare her family once more. Claire, they cried, the multitude of voices begging, pleading. In her hesitation lay their doom. With an explosive cry, she thrust herself forward, plunging deeper into the light, determined to anchor her family's hope and her own truth. But would her courage be strong enough to slice through the dark? Or would she plunge into an abyss where even hope could not survive? The shadows writhed, and the air thickened, suffocating her very being. Claire's resolve surged within her as she braced against the shadows closing in, their clutches like icy chains vying for dominance over her spirit. She could feel the weight of her family's anguish, pressing down like a heavy fog, but despair transformed into an effervescent fire flickering in her heart. She was not just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for them. Together, she shouted, reaching back into the chaos behind her. Images of love and laughter flooded her mind. Ellie's giggle, Jake's tiny hands grasping at the stars, the warmth of her mother's embrace. With each recollection, the light grew brighter, radiating warmth that pushed back the shadows clawing at her edges. Hope ignited, a dazzling flare cutting through despair. The dark twin sneered, its voice booming like thunder. You think you can save them? The shadows have already claimed their souls. No, Claire shouted with undeniable conviction, her heart pounding like war drums. You don't define me. Fear doesn't own me. Just as her words vibrated through the air, she felt a shift. The shadows flinched, momentarily retreating. They recoiled in disbelief before gathering themselves to charge once more. But Claire wouldn't let them. With a fierce scream, she surged forward, deep into the glowing light, arms outstretched. I know their pain and I know my own. I accept them. The warmth enveloped her, fabulous and fierce, creating a barrier against the darkness. For the first time, Claire felt a sense of unity as her family's spirits intertwined with hers. From the shadows, her parents appeared, faces contorted in both agony and hope. You can't escape your past, her mother warned. Yet there was a trembling hint of something else: vulnerability. Face it. Claire's voice rang clear against the cacophony of despair. You were hurt and so was I. But together maybe we can find healing. Her resolve wrapped itself around her family, a tether connecting them with threads of transparency and love. The dark twin writhed in wrath, furious that Claire would not cave. You'll regret this, it bellowed, desperately clawing at the light. But Claire pressed on. Let's embrace our truth together. We've all made mistakes. We're more than our regrets. We are more than this darkness. With every word, the shadows screamed louder, thrashing against Claire and her family's unity. But she felt them responding, glowing faintly as her words resonated. She poured her heart out, weaving the memories of fractured moments into a tapestry of understanding. We can face every mistake. We can learn to forgive. Suddenly, a pulse of light shot out from her focused determination, flooding the clearing. The shadows shrieked. The dark twin shriveled against the exuberant warmth, screaming in agony as Claire's family fell in sync with her visible bonds of love, holding them firm. The shadows began to dissipate, retreating as the light swelled. Each lost whisper of despair pushed back by a memory of love. Keep going, Claire, a voice echoed, and she realized it was her mother, no longer twisted but shining. You have the power. With a final primal roar, Claire lunged, arms wide, embracing the light. In that moment of contact, the light expanded, engulfing every remnant of sorrow, illuminating every shadow like daylight dispels the night. The dark twin let out a wretched wail, dissipating into nothing, scattered like ashes in the wind. The release felt like a rebirth. Claire's family members shimmered before her, their true selves revealed, unburdened by shadows. Love swirled around them like a gentle breeze, lifting their spirits. Tears blurred Claire's vision, but they were tears of relief, not sorrow. Everything that had held them captive crumbled into dust. They were free as the bloody sky transformed into a brilliant blue. The world around them became a garden of renewal, filled with vibrant colors. Snowflakes drifted down, now pure and white, a promise of healing. Serene laughter echoed through the expanse, the weight of the past undone. Mom, Dad, Claire cried, embracing them fiercely. We did it. I always believed in you, her mother whispered, eyes glistening with pride. Claire felt a sense of peace wash over her, intertwined with joy. A weight lifted, replaced by warmth. A tapestry of triumph hung over them, woven with bravery and love. With one last intention, Claire turned toward the horizon. "Now we can live," she said softly. "No more shadows, just light." And as she held tight to the threads of her family, their hands clasped together, they stepped forward into the unknown, ready to weave new stories, each one lit by the enduring power of love. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for your favorite stories. Don't let any piece of our journey slip by. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and help find more fans just like you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Claire's incredible journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this amazing conclusion.